There are 20 quadrillion ants on Earth. If you lined them up one next to another, the line would wrap around the planet 14,000 times. They already cultivate the soil, build, wage wars, maintain supply lines, and manage waste. One thing separates their civilization from ours: intelligence. Their civilization would exist mostly underground. Millions of kilometers of tunnels would connect continents. Cities would grow downward instead of upward. The surface above might remain almost untouched, while beneath it would lie a vast network of settlements. Most of the planet's surface could remain forests, grasslands, or farmland, and pollution and mass destruction would be far less common. Completely eliminating ants would be practically impossible, and humans would likely be forced into cooperation or peaceful coexistence. The greatest advantage of ants would not be intelligence. It would simply be the one thing they are missing. Ants currently communicate through pheromone signals. Scientists have documented around 20 different messages across various species. The day ants develop intelligence equal to humans, those 20 signals would become insufficient within hours. Colonies would need to communicate more complex information. Nothing in their anatomy prevents them from developing more complex communication. They simply have never needed it. But if that changed, within a few weeks, the complexity of pheromones would increase dramatically. Within a few months, early symbolic communication would appear, the equivalent of a first language. Ants use antenna contact to rapidly transfer signals. At human cognitive speeds, that contact would become something much closer to speech. This would lead to stronger social interaction among ants. Their societies already include workers, soldiers, food gatherers, and reproductive individuals. In many species, these roles are chemically assigned at birth. But with human intelligence, every ant would become aware of its role. The first social conflict in their civilization would not come from an outside threat, but from workers who understand their position in the hierarchy and disagree with it. The largest colonies today are already the size of medium-sized nations. For example, the species Formica yacensis in Japan has around 306 million workers spread across 45,000 connected nests. Give those 306 million workers the ability to think politically, and the colony becomes a state within a year. Such social development would also change knowledge. Leafcutter ants have been farming fungi for about 50 million years. They have solved contamination, crop disease, and monoculture collapse through generations of trial and error. With human intelligence, that accumulated biological knowledge becomes conscious rather than instinctive. Within a decade, ant-based agricultural science would systematically expand what took humans 10,000 years to develop. Biology, medicine, and agriculture would explode. They would not start from zero. They would begin with a 50 million year head start. Weaver ants already build multi-chamber nests using silk from their larvae, coordinating hundreds of workers to join leaves together. Within 100 years, ant underground infrastructure could rival everything humans have built. Their construction workforce would number in the billions per colony. 1 cubic meter of excavation, which takes human crews weeks, could be completed in hours by 10,000 coordinated workers. And there is no reason to assume they would remain underground forever. In such a world, ant wars would become inevitable. Army raids, territorial conflicts, and slave-making attacks by species like Polyergus, where workers are captured and forced into labor, The question is not whether they would fight, but what they would fight for. Unlike ants, human warfare is partly limited by the value of human life. Individuals are difficult to replace quickly. In some species, a queen produces 1,500 eggs per day. Losses in ant armies would be fundamentally different from anything in human military history. For most of human history, the relationship between ants and humans has been based on human dominance. But on the first day of ant intelligence, that relationship would no longer be one-sided. Ants are present in every human habitat on Earth except Antarctica. They are already inside homes, office buildings, hospitals, food supply chains, and military facilities. They have known these places for thousands of years. The question is not whether ants could use that knowledge against humans. The question is whether they would have a reason to, and whether humans would give them one. Ants currently perform functions that the global ecosystem depends on: aerating soil, spreading seeds, breaking down dead material, and controlling pests. The economic value of these services in the United States alone amounts to billions of dollars every year. But if they became intelligent, that work would no longer be taken for granted. A colony that understands the economic value of its ecological contribution would no longer provide it for free. Ants could decide for themselves what they want to do, changing the entire way humans use land and agriculture. Ants have been fighting parasites and diseases for tens of millions of years. They practice quarantine. They use antimicrobial compounds secreted by their metapleural glands. Some species even self-medicate by consuming specific plant compounds when infected. This tells us that ants already possess enormous medical knowledge. They just do not consciously understand it yet. Within 500 years, they could develop medicine completely different from our own. Their immune compounds, reproductive biology, and chemical tolerances do not translate directly to human pharmacology. There is no reason to assume their medicine would help humans, but no reason to assume it would harm them either. A massive change would occur in the global economy. Ants control farmland through underground infrastructure. They process organic material on a scale no human industry can match because they possess a workforce of 20 quadrillion individuals. If they could claim ownership over resources, modern economic systems would have no answer to that question. The total weight of all ants on Earth is roughly equal to the total weight of all humans. This estimate has appeared in several studies, including the work of E.O. Wilson. A war between human civilization and a coordinated ant civilization would resemble nothing in recorded history. Ants could move through soil, walls, wiring, and ventilation systems. Their mere presence could disrupt food supplies, water systems, and electronic infrastructure, causing enormous damage to humans. Humans, meanwhile, would have chemicals and fire. Neither side would have an obvious advantage, and both would possess the ability to inflict catastrophic damage on the other. After 1,000 years, two civilizations with conflicting priorities would compete for the same land. Human civilization exists above ground, while ant civilization exists below it. Soil is limited, groundwater is limited, carbon cycles would connect both worlds. An intelligent ant civilization would possess detailed knowledge of underground hydrology, soil chemistry, and root networks that no human scientific instrument has fully explored. They would have this knowledge because they have lived inside that system for 130 million years. The greatest obstacle for ants would be their size. Their bodies are optimized for life on a scale smaller than 1 centimeter. They were not built for space exploration or rocket construction, but their ability to cooperate could compensate for that weakness. Engineering launch infrastructure without human-sized hands would be extremely difficult. However, the same biology that allows colonies to move tons of soil also allows them to apply force collectively on scales that compensate for the size of individuals. Given uninterrupted development, there is no reason why anti-civilization could not reach space within 10,000 years through a completely different path and over a much longer timescale than humanity. All of this leads to one question. Would intelligent ants become a threat to humanity, or would each species simply occupy its own layer of the Earth? Ants do not lack resources, workforce, or materials. They lack only consciousness.